And I think we're live. Cool. Welcome everyone. Hello to what is, I think, episode number 7 of the Toon Room podcast. Man, every time I say it, that word podcast, I don't know, just yet another conversation in the Toon Room, let's say. And today we have the wonderful Ken Faier joining us. Founder of Epic Story Media, one of the original people who put together Kidscreen magazine back in the day. And I'll let him kind of talk a little bit more about that. But for those who haven't listened to previous conversations and discussions, I'll just make a real quick disclaimer. What we're interested here in is really personal stories. I'm interested in personal stories. Right now, the whole, and this is a huge reason why I created this community, because the whole industry is kind of in flux, and things are changing, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And it's very clear to me that there is no one clear path in any industry, right? And specifically here, and there's no one path that is exactly the same than the other. So this is why all these personal stories are really, really interesting, I think, and potentially inspiring for people listening to this later on, or who are here, to kind of see that perspective and to kind of understand where people are coming from and what their journey was like, and maybe see some touch points and so on. So there's other people who talk about what's going on in the industry, what is the future of this or that, and so on. And we'll let them do that. But I want to have kind of a little bit more personal conversation, I suppose. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you. And for the rest of the hour, you'll be doing the talking, Ken.
Well, I hope
Let's
you're
kick off.
asking me some questions,
Let's kick off.
but
Let's kick off. Let's kick off with. Um, I guess the early days, or maybe even before. We talked about this when we had a little pre-chat a couple of days before, and so I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway for everybody else. Is were you ever planning? Were you considering the animation industry as a potential career, or animation industry adjacent? Like how did you end up um, working in this business? I think that could be a really fascinating story.
sure. Let's go back to the 70s, I guess, as a kid. Hi, everybody. First of all, thanks for joining, and whoever listens to this afterwards. I have been watching what Alex has been doing with the Toon Room, and was one of the early registrants. Gustavo, welcome.
Hey, Ken.
And hello. So I'm going to get going. That's awesome. I love you're showing us everything in some upside down camera. But so yeah. So look, I think first of all, the answer to the question is no. I had absolutely no plan to be doing what I'm doing right now. That's for sure. I always loved the media industry or whatever that might be, but I grew up in a fairly small suburb of Montreal, and never really would have thought that TV or animation was a career even. And I was just a typical kid with a 4x3 television and watched the very few
Mm.
cartoons that I could access. I used to come home for lunch and watch the Flintstones. It was on at 12 o'clock every single day. I'd come home in elementary school and have pancakes or French toast and whatnot. And there was the Flintstones, which wasn't really a young kid's show, but it was one of the ones that I could get, and I
Right.
loved it. I probably watched almost every episode. And then I remember the Hulk on Saturday mornings, and some of the Marvel stuff back getting into the late 70s, if that's when it was, 80s cartoons. By then I was already in high school and not really watching as much television. So pretty typical upbringing, and went into university. My mother wanted me to be an accountant, a lawyer, or a doctor, or a dentist. That's the only career she knew what existed. And that's
Yeah.
what you said to your kids back then. And I think
Yes.
those are still good jobs, actually.
I,
They're real
I,
jobs.
they are real jobs. I think I just turned 40 last year, and I think my parents are still waiting for me to get a proper job. I think they're still wondering, like, what am I going to do with my life? They're still
Yes,
waiting
totally,
for that junction,
totally.
for that moment.
100%. And I have my daughter's a fine arts graduate, just graduated. And, my whole career, thankfully, I'm blessed to have been able to work with so many wonderful creative people. A few that are are here in the room with us. And, that my parents that didn't understand, know what, certainly creativity was, I guess, important to them, but it wasn't certainly a vocation.
Hmm.
And not something that they really understood. My father was an electrician. I worked for him in the summers. I was terrible at it, almost electrocuted myself several times. I'm terrible with tools. I remember sticking a screwdriver into a socket that, of course, I should have turned the power off, and I didn't. And so I
Yeah.
never really enjoyed. But he,
But
came
that's how
from.
you fix things, right? That's how you
That's
fix
how you
things.
fix
Just
things.
screwdrivers and things.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
and
how it
things
works. Come on.
and plugs. And my father was very handy, super handy, and he had to be. I mean, he came from Europe post Second World War, and had nothing, and he needed to find a way to work. He was started working at 15 to support the family, who eventually came
Yeah.
over from via Russia, back Poland post Second World War. So I would not be here if my father didn't come that route on a boat at 13 to Montreal, and then met my mother, who's from Colombia, who emigrated, her parents in the 20s from Romania and to Colombia, and they met in the Catskills.
Yeah.
So that's where it all started. They met in the Catskills, and they got married. Or he went for this first vacation after he was 25 years old, and worked for 10 years. And at 15, he became like the main foreman, so to speak, of the job site, walked on the job site, got the gig, and basically supported all the family. His parents eventually, who did survive, came after the war, and he had two other siblings, and he basically supported them. Sent one to university in Chicago, became a physicist, and then moved to Israel. He passed away many years ago. My father as well. So they met in the Catskills. My father courted her for 6 months, and she moved to Montreal. Could barely speak a word of English, Spanish speaking. She was born in Colombia, and they had a mattress, and that was the only piece of furniture that they had.
Right.
So that's where it
Yeah.
started. And they made a life. And my brother was born at some point. I think they were around 30 when he was born, and he's a bit older than I was. And he's an engineer. He went that path. I
Hmm.
was in sciences, and I was going to do health sciences, and I was like, this is just not for me. I want to do something a little more creative. So in university, I went into business, and I was thinking, okay, could be around media, could be around advertising, and that seemed interesting to me at that time, traditional advertising. So that was a
Yeah.
path. So I hedged. I said, okay, marketing, finance. So one of those two, marketing being a little bit more creative, and finance just being the numbers. And I was always pretty good with math and accounting and all that. I got grasped it very easily. And in sciences, I did quite well, but I didn't want to do that for a career. So, anyways, three
Right.
years in university, and was waitering in the summer, my last summer course, and I knew I pretty much had to move to Toronto because it was pretty French was becoming the number one language, and my French was
Hmm.
not very good. So I knew that I was going to have to make a move at some point, and I met my wife that summer. She was going to school with me. We didn't really know each other too well during school. But I was living at home while I was going to school. But that summer, I took a sublet apartment, and I just remember I could see the room right now because it had this little yellow landline phone sitting there. I didn't know who I sublet it from. I can't remember how I found it. There was no internet. I must have seen an ad in the paper. I don't know, or somebody told me about it, and I rented this apartment for 3 months. And I was working, having a great summer, and but I knew I was going to need to move to Toronto. A lot Montreal kind of was economically fairly depressed. This is late '80s, and the economic crash of '87 happened, and it was just around the world was the economies were terrible. And so this is '89, so it's still not in great shape. And I went to McGill University, and we used to have tons of recruiters come and hire. It was one of the top schools in Canada, and there was one recruiter, one company came, I think it was Procter and Gamble, for one position. That was it. Usually there was 50, 60, 100 different opportunities,
Yeah.
and none. So I was like, okay, I'm going to move to Toronto. I knew a couple of people who had lived there, and so I had a plan to move and look for a job. But enjoyed the summer. But one day I get a phone call. It was around August, end of August, and my friend Rosalie Dowse, who was in my school, she had another year to go. Her boyfriend, who was also McGill, who's awesome, Javier Gonzalez Sanfeliu, lives in Miami right now. His family's Spanish. He's an awesome guy. They were going out at the time, and so he'd graduated, as did I. He went down back to Washington, where his father lived, back to his family, and Rosalie had gone to visit him. And that weekend was the Mac conference, Steve Jobs presenting whatever Apple's next
Mm-hmm.
products were. And on
Yeah.
the flight back, there was this gentleman, Jim Schenkman, who worked at Brunico, who launched Brunico. Brunico is the company that launched Playback Magazine, Strategy Magazine. These were trade magazines that covered the film and TV business in Canada and the marketing business in Canada. He just launched Strategy. And he was in Montreal for the film festival. He was on the plane or in the waiting room in the area to board the plane, and he was chatting with Rosalie, and he was telling her all about that he was looking for a recent business grad, to basically shadow him, to be his assistant, to run around with him. He's a very entrepreneurial guy,
Yeah.
super detailed, works hard, and that he was looking for someone, and he's going to be in Montreal. He's an ex-Montrealer. His family had moved to Toronto kind of in the 70s, when a lot of exodus happened when the Parti Québécois came into power, which was the beginning of the movement of the French community taking over the cultural and political landscape, which is amazing. But for me, being an English-speaking person, I just knew that my French wasn't strong enough to be able to find opportunity. Plus, it was very difficult. 2 weeks before that phone call, that little yellow phone that rang, it was Rosalie. She had sat with him and said, "Look, I'm not graduated yet, but I know somebody who you might want to talk to." And I happened to be in the apartment, which is rare. I was working at night, waitering, doing stuff
Yeah.
during the day. I had a couple of other things, research project that I was doing at university, so I wasn't in the apartment very often. Picked up the phone, and it was Rosalie. Said, "Look, this guy's here. You should meet him." And I said, "Okay, give me his number." I called him, and I put on my banker suit, my brogue shoes. It was 37 degrees Celsius. That was super hot. And I walked 4 blocks to the office. The office is still there. It's like this Saint Laurent. It's like Montreal, Saint Laurent. It hasn't changed at all. My daughter went to school in Montreal. She lived on Saint Laurent. Like, it's the same. So where all the delis were, like, it was a big Jewish area back in the day. Duddy Kravitz and all that stuff. Like, that was the era. Post Second World War. Anyways, I walked over there, shaved, and got there. It was pretty hot, sweating. The office was not air conditioned, and it was a journalist's office, and there's like ashtrays everywhere. Leo Rice Barker
Of
was the
course.
journalist. He had crazy hair, and
Yeah.
he was a real journalist. He always wanted to get the truth out of people. It wasn't just a trade magazine where it was fluff pieces. He was like investigative journalist
Yeah.
for the film
Yeah.
TV business. Some loved him and some hated him, but so anyways, I've met with Jim, and we spent about an hour talking. He had this list of like 15 pages, tiny little writing, things that he was looking for in a person. Blah, 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 blah. We want someone
Oh,
who's a
wow.
go-getter,
No
someone who's this,
pressure.
someone who's that,
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
who's this, someone who's that. And then he goes,
Someone named Ken.
so he goes, "So what of these can you do?" I said, "I can do all of those things, but I cannot drive stick. I cannot drive a manual car." At the time.
Was that
And
on the
now I do
list?
have one. I love manual cars. I do have
Was that on the list though?
It was
Like,
on
for
the
real?
list. It was one of the things on
Really?
the list, because he's traveling to Europe and he needs, someone who can drive the stick.
Ah, okay, okay. Now it makes sense.
But at the time,
Wow.
I couldn't.
Okay.
My wife did teach me on her Civic at some point, which
Yeah.
eventually. So she had another year at school, and I basically 2 weeks later, I moved to Toronto and worked for Jim for 11 years, until he came so I ran around with him. I eventually became the publisher of Playback and of Strategy, and just became his number two in essence. And he was like a second
Yeah.
father to me. He was a wonderful human being, and still in touch. It's because of him I started to play pickleball recently, because he invited us,
Oh,
my
okay.
wife and I, to Costa Rica to join. They were playing pickleball every morning. I was like, this is lame. I'm never going to play pickleball. This is so lame as a sport. And then I tried the last day we were there, and it was awesome. I'm playing tomorrow for 2 hours. And my wife's totally
Yeah.
into it too. Yeah, so I mean that was the start. That was the path. Absolutely not a plan to get into animation. And in 95, 95, early 95, Jim had a meeting with a kids producer in Canada, and who was pitching him on something. I can't remember what. And Jim always wanted to go global. He wanted to go beyond Canada. And
Yeah.
he came out of that meeting. He said, "I have the eureka moment." He said, the kids business. Canada's a leader in kids. We have so many great producers and a great system. And at the time, Canada was probably one of the second or third largest producers of animation. Not sure where we sit now. And he said, there's not really a trade magazine. And we were in the trade magazine. So I got to meet all the leaders in the Canadian film and TV business and in the marketing world. So it was a really cool, interesting position, because we were the magazine that brought communities together in those fields in Canada. And so we started to, what happened to the screen? Just shifted. So we started to build out this plan. And he is a very good planner, very detailed person. I was a good yin to his yang. I guess if
Yeah.
there's one very complementary skill sets, and he and I, and then the editor of one of the other two magazines, Mark Smicka, the three of us basically had this plan together and built this idea as like, okay, the idea of reaching children through entertainment. That was the tagline. The Kidscreen, about reaching kids through entertainment. Was the tag. This is 1995. When we started to go out, I started to go out. Joan Lambert joined. She was working with us. She was working in the world of talent management, and she got sick of it.
So,
And she
yeah.
did a reset. Joan Lambert, who eventually was a breakthrough in many other places and has gone on to produce many things. And hi, Joan, if you ever
Hmm.
watch this, this is reminiscing back in those days. And basically, the four of us went forth to communicate to the global world, it's like, hey, we have this idea to launch this magazine. Um,
Yeah.
Anyways, we ended
And
up launching it in 1996. I just finished I wrote a 30th anniversary piece
yeah.
for Kidscreen. Literally, I submitted it this week. It was the first thing I had to, over the holidays. I knew I had to get it in, and I got
Your
it in on
first
Monday.
task for the year.
First task of the year, hit send, and I tried to avoid using ChatGPT. I said I'm not going to, but they sent me these questions, and it was clear there were ChatGPT questions, and I said I'm not going to use that. But and then I threw it into ChatGPT. I was like, oh, those are really good questions, answers. I said, okay, I'm not going to use that. I did my own version of it, and yeah, a lot has changed in those 30 years. Well, it'll be,
Yeah.
35, 36, 37 years
30.
since I've been working, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, there's so many
But
amazing memories of that moment. So that got me into specifically kids. I mean, obviously the things
yeah.
we were doing before, we were around the kids world in animation, and so many great companies, Nelvana and Cinar, and lots of others who preceded us in our industry here in Canada. But it gave the Canadians, the producers were like, this is amazing. This gives us a voice. And then the US producers,
Hmm.
they were like, this gives us a voice. European producers. And it wasn't just film and TV, it was also about marketing and advertising. It was also about gaming. It was about consumer products. It was about all of it. So Variety, Hollywood Reporter, all these trade magazines and film and TV, they didn't talk about kids much. If it was Disney, they'd talk about it. But if it was an independent producer,
Yeah.
it was like, they're not talking about it. So it gave a voice to
Right.
everybody. So it very quickly pulled the industry together. It was amazing. And I started to really get deep into meeting all the CEOs and presidents and et cetera of all these companies around the world in licensing and television and all of it, and gaming. And 30 plus years later at Victoria Media, like everything we're doing started with that education in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
And working with the editor, Mark, it was the same as working with the creator in film and TV in the show. He was the creative side of the business side of my role at Kidscreen. So it was very natural, that relationship, and that formed the basis for how I work. How I like to work is really partnering with creators and creative people and having such a great respect for it. I can't do what they do. They could probably do what I do, but they don't want to. And
Right.
I would love to be able to create something. It would be
But
amazing, but I kind of I keep that at bay. It's not really my drive.
yeah,
I don't necessarily want to create a show
but I
myself
think
personally.
that's very healthy. Having that division, have that be kind of clear cut. And you're totally right. I think most creative people, and speaking for myself, there's a lot of these operational business aspects that are not unfathomable,
Yeah.
but they sort of, I don't know, take away the joy of doing the thing you love to do a little bit. And
Yeah.
if not just that, if not that, it's also kind of dispersing the effort and it's energy you have to put
Yeah.
in, whereas you would rather, put those hours into the thing that you actually do. And you can't, I mean, especially if you're, I suppose if you're an independent producer, small, creator or whatever, you can't completely rid yourself of these things, and you have to be savvy and understand them. But I think it's a prerequisite for long-term success to have somebody
Yeah.
take care of that part and be
Yeah,
good
and
at
I
it
think
and
it's
enjoy doing
intricately,
it.
the sinews of it have to really be tied to me. 'Cause it's if it doesn't work, if that relationship doesn't work, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
There's
Uh,
certainly some companies that have become successful with those partners, maybe not getting as along as well
yeah.
as one might. But I think it's for me one of the most important things is that if I look back at all the moments of where I had joy versus like frustration. When the frustration went on for too long, I made a move, and I didn't make that many changes in my career. I mean, I have same wife, that's and same children. That's good. I'm sticking with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when it comes to if I look back at I was at Brunico for 11 years, and it was a very heartbreaking thing to go into quit to gym. It was a very, very difficult, very emotional
Of course.
moment to
Yeah.
do it, and it happened based on I was getting my role was becoming more and more operational. More too many people were reporting to me, and I started to get really frustrated by that. I wasn't doing the
Hmm.
stuff. I was then like towards the end of being a Brunico, was around 99 2000. I was just basically managing people,
Yeah.
which I don't really love managing people. I love working with people. I don't necessarily love having everything has to report into me, and I have to be the final say on
I
everything. I
know.
really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just not the
Yeah.
way I like to work. I have a great team here that I rely on for the strengths that they bring, and so I was getting too operational, and that's when I had an opportunity. I was at Kidscreen Summit in '99, and Ted Riley, who was at Alliance Atlantis at the time, running distribution. It was a big Canadian production and entertainment company, and we were at the summit. It was in LA. It was one of the early ones. It had started in New York, so we had started the summits and was just coming in a month. And he said, "Look, I'm looking for a head of distribution. If you know somebody," and it was like ding, the bell went off in my head. I said, like, I want to do that. I want to take the leap into doing what we were into the community. So long story short, yes, we
Yeah.
negotiated, and eventually I was offered the job, and quitting was not it was a really tough thing to do. So Jim, if you're
So,
watching this, it was not because of you, because I needed to get back in or get to that next thing. And
yeah.
um,
So what was
so uh,
just to clarify, what was that thing? I mean, the thing that maybe you were not seeing yourself in doing it for a long time. And I totally resonates with me personally. We were, just having a similar conversation earlier today in terms of, oh, I'm the manager, I'm managing people. So I get that. But what was the thing that you were excited about with this new opportunity? What was the thing that you were missing that you like
Yeah.
wanted to get your hands on and do more of? Like
Yeah.
what was that spark?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a few things. I mean, first of all, Kidscreen, the way the kids industry worked was super fascinating to me. Going back to kind of the marketing and the finance side of things and brands. So if you're going to go into marketing, Procter and Gamble's the ultimate consumer packaged goods, and my wife eventually went into that and hated it.
Mhm.
But she went down that path, and lots of my friends did as well. And some of them loved it. Very few, most of them eventually hated it. But the whole idea of kind of the creative marketing, building a brand, building audience, building a business
Right.
around something. So we have taken a step back. We also
Right.
launched Real Screen magazine. Real Screen is all about the kind of lifestyle and reality programming and whatnot. So that also went on to become quite successful with the Real Screen Summit. So it's a whole other community. But that industry was less interesting to me. And the film
Mhm.
industry was less interesting to me. I didn't really like the way the film industry behaved. There's a lot of sharks in that business, and I don't know. I just
Sure.
didn't enjoy the attitudes and the arrogance and the egos in that world.
Mhm.
But the kids' world, and I was working more on Real Screen or on other things, I was like I was missing the kids' world, and I missed the complexity of it. So that's what
Mhm.
drew me to it. And it was a Canadian company. They're a publicly traded company and a nice long history preceding it. But it was they had like 1,500 people at the company, but there was only like two or three people working on kids. It was quite new for them. So it was quite
Mhm.
entrepreneurial, and it was cross-functional. So we were distribution, but I would work closely with the production team and development, and then there was a merchandising person, all reporting to different people in this organization. They also had TV channels and whatnot. So what
Yeah.
appealed to me was like, okay, so first of all, it gets me into that space. And Ted Riley, if you're listening to this, I didn't leave because of you. I left because it was time for me to move into an entrepreneurial situation. And love you, Ted, for giving me the opportunity. And also was difficult to hand in my resignation there too, because
Yeah.
he gave me the shot, and we were successful. And But I felt a the company was publicly traded, and I had a sneaking suspicion that it was going to be sold at some point
They sold.
or
Yeah.
bought.
Yeah.
They did sell a year after I left, and so again, no regrets. Any decision I've made, I've zero regrets. I've lived my whole life that way. But it was great because then
Healthy,
at
I
one
think.
point, yeah, healthy. While at Alliance Atlantis, there was a moment where um, there was the key thing of trying to launch a brand is working together with creative, with production, with marketing and franchise management and
Yeah.
toy, and so it's a lot of complexity to it. And there was a moment where they had let go. They had like the production units was big. Was They were doing lots of live action production, and eventually they did CSI, which was a huge success. And they were
Oh.
the distributor of it. They didn't create it, but CBS had approached them, and they took the gamble on CSI, which was just when I started. And that was so successful, everything else paled in comparison. They started to lay off tons of people. Literally, the first week I was there, I think, and we were called into a meeting, and they're like, "Okay, laying off 100 people in the production side of things." I'm like, "Wow, I just made a terrible decision jumping ship, joining this." But so eventually they kind of shrunk the production side and let go the head of the production side of kids. And they were thinking of maybe hiring someone else. And I went to Ted. I said, "Look, Ted, please don't hire someone that's in a different division. Let's bring it all together. It needs to work together. Production, distribution, licensing." Jennifer Bennett at the time, who was there, and Alan Gregg, good friend of mine, and we're still great friends. 2 days ago, he was doing development. I didn't really know him that well, so he was still there. And then, long story short, yes, they brought us together. And I remember I had one meeting with Seton McLean, who was one of the partners at Alliance Atlantis, and one of the original founders of Atlantis side of Alliance Atlantis. They had merged. And I said, Seaton, I need a budget for development. There's a couple of projects I want to go after. And I said, I need 400 grand. And he goes, okay. I was like,
How did you
okay.
come up with that number? Did you just kind of pull
I
it
had
out?
there were a couple of budgets that I had from Ace Fipke, who eventually I became partners with at Nerdcore. We were working on a show called Dragon Booster, which is still awesome. Kevin Maurer created that the show. So the first thing I did is like, okay, I need properties that are brand potential. So one of them was Lunar Gym with Alex Barr. There was a Bible sitting on that had a productions desk, and I looked at it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Who did this? There was a phone number on the cover of the Bible. I gave him a call. It was this British guy, and sounded like like a 70-year-old proper British gentleman. That's what it sounded like to me on the phone. So I had a few calls with him. I said, "Look, I really like this. This is super cool." And I eventually did meet him at MIPCOM. So I said, "Okay, great, but let's meet at MIPCOM. Let's do a deal. Let's develop the show." And someone taps me on the shoulder, and I look around, and he goes, "Oh, you can?" I said, "Yes." And he says, "I'm Alex." I'm like, "What? You're not 70? You're like 22." And so we. Long story short, we greenlit that show, and it's his first show that he did, and he's gone on to do many others. I have one of the toys over there, and then the other one was I ran into Jocelyn Christie from Brunico, and this is like 2001 or something. I'd been at Alliance Atlantis for a year. I said, "Look, I'm looking for like a boys action adventure property." She goes, "Well, you should meet Kevin Maurer. He just pitched me this idea, and it's amazing." Long story short, met him, optioned it, and he eventually introduced me to Ace Fipke, who you worked with.
How long?
Kevin was at Hasbro. Go ahead.
How long ago was this? Because we worked together with Kevin was on the Epic team when we were developing
Yeah,
the
for sure.
the
Talking
show.
Tom.
Yeah,
2001. 24
2001. So
years.
by that
Yeah.
time, you'd
Yeah.
already had a pretty good working relationship. I
Yeah,
think
he
it's safe
taught
to
me a
say.
lot. He taught me a ton. From as a
Yeah,
creative strategist, I think that's maybe what I would call him. Just
yeah,
amazing, really. And the pitch was amazing. And so, anyways, back to the 400,000. It was like, okay, we wanted to do a cool trailer. Kevin introduced me to Ace, who showed up in
yeah.
Toronto, and we had this visual effects studio that we wanted to use for the animation. That was one of the goals. And so Kevin said, "You should know him. He's a great producer. He was at Mainframe, one of the founding studios of CG animation." And so he comes out to Toronto. He had taken a year off sabbatical, and he hadn't quite committed to doing something yet. And so he comes to Toronto. We have a whole day talking about the project, what we want to do with the trailer, and I had already had the sign off on the 400, I think, or somewhere in there. I asked for the 400. We used it for this part of it for the trailer that we produced, which was amazing. It was a great trailer. CG, highly stylized 2D at that time. A lot of the CG that was out there was super cold and just not there. Even the feature animation wasn't quite there. I mean, Reboot was the first. That was Mainframe. That was the first network television CG animated series. So he worked on later seasons of it before leaving. Anyway, so he comes in and checks out the studio, blah, blah, blah. He goes, and at the end of the meeting, he goes, "Yeah, I mean, these guys can't do it. Like, I wouldn't do it here. If I'm going to move here to do it, I'd have to move my whole team out to do this and to do it here. These guys are not set up to do what we're talking about." I said, "Okay, who is this guy? Mutton chop, sideburns, and I look like a cowboy." And I was like, "Okay." So he said, "Look, let me propose you. We'll do this trailer for you. I'll pull together my elite team from various studios that were
Yeah.
post Mainframe people. They set up a little condo so at night on weekends these nerds would come together to make this animated trailer. I sent them a big giant case of beer when it was all said and done, but the nerds were back in their places."
Yeah.
Long story short, we eventually greenlit that show. I think it was $22 million we raised for it. We had a video game deal with Konami Jax was our toy partner. We did a broadcast deal with Disney, ABC Family. We had a German tax deal. It was about $8 million
Oh, okay.
we raised on that. So it was a real, like 39
This
half
is
hours.
happening. Yeah.
It was
Oh, wow. This
2022.
is
No, sorry, 2002.
2002. No, 2002. Yeah. So that's, yeah.
And Ace
Okay.
also said, "Look, I'll also what I'll propose to you. I will propose that we will do a budget for what the show will cost, and for animation. We'll set up a studio to do it, but I'll also we will go to all the other studios that existed at the time. Mainframe was one of them to get a budget. If we'll set the quality bar based on the trailer, and then we'll if we're a better budget than anywhere else, come set it up with us.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of nuances to it, but in the end, yes. But I do remember sitting, I was on the floor I was on at Alliance House, a beautiful tower corner office I had down Bloor Street. The sun would set right into it. Was awesome. Alan was working with me, Jess and Jennifer was awesome. She closed the deal with the toy company, Jax, and sorry, I lost track of where I was going with that. Anyways,
Uh,
oh yeah, okay, now I do remember. So we're on this floor, and
okay.
so the contracts are starting to be pulled together, and Ace didn't have a name for his company yet. So
Yeah.
I hear down the line, there's some lawyer saying, "Who the hell's Nerdcore?" And I'm like, "Uh-oh, I have a feeling that's we're about to spend whatever $15 million with this company that nobody knows. It's called Nerdcore." So that's how that happened, and yeah, we ended up producing the show. And while we were in production, it was around 2005. That's when he gave me a call. There was another show he wanted to do called Stormhawks. It was just a pitch. It was just concepts, and we talked a lot about it. And so I said, you know what? Let's take this on. Let's option it. So we
Mhm.
negotiated a deal, and I get a phone call from him. I'm ready to send it to legal, and he goes, that's a good deal for you guys. Why don't you do what you do with us and come and become a partner in our company? And we'll create IP and blah blah. We'll own it, we'll manage it, we'll launch it, and etc. So that's kind of how the conversation started. And he wanted me to move out to Vancouver, so I called my wife. A few conversations, I wasn't sure. So I have this corner office with the sun setting right into my office. Everything's really cool, fun. Some resources. I mean, even a big company, there's more resources there, but how much do you get? It was getting tighter and tighter in terms of budgets and whatnot. So I called my wife. I said, "What do you think? Let's move to Vancouver." And she said, "No, that's okay. You go ahead." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I better unpack that.
Mhm.
What do you mean you go ahead?" So we had two small kids at the time, and she did not want to
Yeah.
move to Vancouver. So,
Right.
anyways, long story short, we negotiated something, and I was going to stay in Toronto and just travel out there often, and which I did, but I had to give my resignation in, and that was also tough because it was a great thing that we were doing. But so I was going to the
Yeah.
company that was making the show for them, and so I continued to work on it a little bit, but it was already in production and delivering, and a really cool show, beautiful show. Still looks great
Um,
20 years later. Go ahead.
yeah. This kind of leads me into this question that I've been kind of sitting on a little bit. All these projects, and all through like the present day. I was just wondering, what is that? I hate saying this, but in lack of a better term, the je ne sais quoi, the little, X factor for both the projects. Like you said, I just saw this pitch, it was just laying there and it caught my eye and I thought it was cool. And my question is why? And both for the material and also, which I think is equally as important, is the people, right? Because you mentioned
Yeah.
obviously you have a good eye for character, right? Because you've mentioned all these people and all these creators that you've been up to this point. So I was curious, like, what is that? If you can even put it in words, I'm sure you can. But what are these little elements or these little kind of, I don't know,
Mhm.
flags that you go, okay, I
Yeah.
see that, and that I see that thing. He has, the force is strong with this one.
The force is strong with it. I'd say probably, I'll use a different way at that because when jumping ahead, as a Nerdcore, we got bought, and when I reached my moment of frustration there, and I said to myself, "Okay, I I probably have another shot at this in terms of creating a new company." I'm generally
Hmm.
pretty entrepreneurial, but I've always had partners, so I never started anything on my own. But I said, "Okay." I read this book called The Happiness Equation, which I recommend to everybody that's ever will listen to this. I've bought it for people. I've given it to people,
You
and really,
have
I was kind of
recommended it to me as
I've
well
recommended it to
on a
you,
few
and
occasions. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a book. I was walking by that wellness section, and it said, on the back, it said, our parents' generation, they told us, you know, work hard, become a lawyer, doctor, accountant, dentist, work hard, achieve success, and you will be happy.
Right.
And he said for him, it was not the right equation. He'd had a bunch of success, and he wrote the Book of Awesome, and I think he was a speaker at Kidscreen once, actually, a keynote. And he said, he went to explore happiness, and for him, he said the equation's all wrong. It's really do what you love to do, and you will achieve success. And it hit me at the right time. I was like, okay, I got to make a change here because I was frustrated, kind of a little bit of politics at the company. I was like, I loved
Hmm.
creating franchises, and my role had
Yeah.
become, after we got bought by Wildbrain, kind of like Slugterra, which is a show I'm very proud of to have been involved with and still working on. Ace created it. We went off, did the same thing in a way that we did with Dragon Booster and even Stormhawks. We got 52 half hours greenlit on Stormhawks, and that was also well into the $20 million range. And then same with Slugterra, we got 39 half hours. I mean, this is unheard of now. It's so hard to do. Um,
Yeah.
but I think so I sat down and said, okay, what is the company I would create for I love, again, franchise development. I do love franchises because I look at properties that have some level of play in it. Because if a
Yeah.
boy or girl loves a show, if there's no play in it, there's no Kevin, this is terms that he uses, and I love these. It's like,
Mhm.
what is the meaning of the show for you, for the audience? What is the benefit to the audience? And what is the agency it gives the audience to say, okay, I want to become a part of that?
Right.
And so that stuck with me for a long time. And I think IP, some of it's innate. You just see it as like, okay, something that you has a great story that has also an ability for the audience to get involved in, to play, to collect, to trade, to take it on. And I think that's
Yeah.
flashing to where I think we are right now in our industry. It's whatever the industry is you call it. To me, it's all about, can you build fandom? And you could do that with social media posts. You can short form. You can do it with a lot of different ways. You can do it with a trading card game, a board game, or whatever. But the more that
Yeah.
property or the story has, the more room there is to grow your audience. And at some point, you just super serve that audience. So I think that was even back to Lunar Gym, which was this idea of the astronaut on the moon, that every preschooler can see it. And it was a world up there of vehicles and
Hmm.
adventure, and Slug and Dragon Booster, same thing. It had so much built into it. So I look for those things that, and at Epic Story Media, again, back to the structure of it, I wanted to be able to have a company that could execute on all of the commercialization of great IP. We launched a toy company last year. We're in Roblox. We have a mobile game studio. Of course, we
Yeah.
produce. We have our YouTube team, led by Yaka, who was at Outfit 7, worked with you.
Yes. It was my
And these
first
are all,
boss
and
here. Yeah.
it's the people, of course. So I enjoy socializing with the industry and people, and helping where I can. And some people I want to partner with because I believe that they're going to really obsess about their property. I need them to obsess about it. If not, then I can obsess about it too. But if I have to be the heavy lifting, it's probably not right for us. Not to say it's all
Yeah.
about me because we have a team, but really the idea of Epic Story Media was partner with creators and build franchise together, and they're responsible for the creative heart of the franchise, and we're responsible with them to find a way to finance it and commercialize and hopefully
And I
profit
think,
from
yeah, and I think that's wonderful. I wanted to say earlier when we were talking about kind of this divide of, creative and business, as it were, and a good parallel, I think is a good parallel, popped into my head is the automotive business in the 20th century, for example, specifically in North America and the US. Probably per capita, it was one of the densest industries in terms of number of brands that existed,
yeah,
right? And he always had the engineer who would be the equivalent of the
yeah,
creator in our industry who would, just like Cord, for example, or,
yeah,
if we're going a little bit further back, Duesenberg or, Hudson, all that stuff, all those beautiful designs and innovative ideas from an engineering standpoint, but wherever a lot of this their downfall almost always was caused by the lack of this partnership, of this kind of
yeah.
dichotomy, where you have the engineer, the creative doing the engineering and the creative, and then a healthy partnership with somebody who is kind of doing the big picture stuff and the business stuff and the
A
and kind of
million
and having
percent.
his
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having their back, you know?
I think it's in
And
everything. It's in everything that we do. I mean, like even in the toy business, it's the same thing. You have a relationship between the product development people and the marketing people. Let's say it's somewhat of an equivalent. We're in the toy
yeah,
business. Run Kim's running the business, Kim Morris, and she works with creative people that she'll go out and work with toy designers. And I watch the debates and the arguments that they have, and it's like perfect. I want to see that. I don't want to say no. You just do this, or you just do that. If it's not a
yeah,
symbiosis, it rarely works. It has to be the right people and how people work together. Building a team to make a show. It's the same thing. Like you're building a whole team of whether it's showrunner, director, writer, like it all has to work together. And sometimes there's a lot of strife in there and still delivers a great thing. But having just the
yeah,
right amount of not conflict, but ways to debate things through and come to a landing that's not authoritarian. And I do think
right.
that it is in everything. It's in licensing, it's in gaming, it's in every industry has, I think, an equivalent. Back to the editor and the publisher of a newspaper or magazine or whatnot. Like it
Mhm,
has to be healthy and it has to be partnership. And so for me, partnership's really important. And eventually became partners with Steve Couture, who he and I are more business, both of us are, but we have different skills, I would say, or
right, yeah,
different approaches to it. And together is really strong. I mean, he's very much more technical and much more innovation minded, and he understands operational issues, and he's bringing in some AI approaches into our pipeline, and but all creative, all servicing creative and creators and designers and artists. And I saw there was some posts on the Toon Room that was a super interesting back and forth. Alan's
yeah,
podcast, which I haven't listened, but I read the back and forthing on AI, which
yeah,
is
yeah,
it's not controversial. It's just something we have to figure out how to do it
yeah,
responsibly. We can't just put our heads in the ground and say we're not going to touch it. We're starting to do that carefully. But yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's as
and
long as
also
creative
it's
is thought deeply
yeah,
about, and every decision is important.
and also it's one of those things where it's so early on that even if we use the same vocabulary, it's not 100% certain that we mean the same thing.
Yeah,
So even if we say the same words in my mind and in your mind, they probably mean something different, or at least there is a
yeah,
degree of shifting there and differentiation.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
do want to say, I mean, I was going to respond in the chat rooms about that conversation. I just
Yeah.
gone to see the movie Hamnet,
Hmm.
and it's we were in a VIP theater. Maybe there was like 30, 40 people in it. I was there with my wife, my daughter, friend, and a friend of hers, and we there were four women, myself, and the movie ends. The performances are unbelievable. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend it.
No, no
The,
spoilers, please.
no
I'm
spoilers,
quite
but
looking forward
the spoiler is
to
that
it.
everybody in the theater was just bawling, and it
Right.
wasn't like
Yeah.
taking advantage. It wasn't like a way to like twist. Okay, everyone's like
Yeah.
somebody dies at the end. It was performances were incredible. It's like there is never going to be a moment where AI can achieve that the emotional response from something, and I think that
Yeah.
while the tools are there, they are tools, and so yes,
Yes.
like I had the blinders on. I'm not going to even think about it, IP, copyright, all whatever the business issues are around it. But there are ways that there's going to be ways where it can benefit. I think all of
Yeah.
us, but there's a lot of pieces to it. But emotion and story and great connection. I know Corey's on the line here. I'm not sure if he's still there, but when I met him, like you could just tell why he's doing this. He wants to bring something
Yeah.
to an audience that he cares deeply about. So, that was
Yeah.
it's an honor to be working with him and help him because he's got success and
Yeah.
it's like, how do you navigate this world? It's not easy. It's not an easy world
Yeah.
to navigate.
For sure. For sure. I remember my first animation festival experience. I was so mad. I was because
Mm,
a lot of short form animated festival stuff is very self-indulgent,
mm,
especially more kind of on the experimental. It depends on the festival. They have different affinities. They like different things, who the programmers are, and so on. Obviously, but uh, a lot of the stuff is not really what I would call narrative, right?
mm,
It's cool. There is a story there. There's an affinity. There's a feeling there. Great, right? But very very self indulgent. And my first impression was like, oh my god, this is great, but it belongs in an art installation. It belongs in a
yeah,
museum projected on a giant wall, and then you make an experience of it. But it's not a film, right?
yeah,
Because in my mind, whenever somebody, and now it's online or whatever by choice of tapping or clicking, but whenever somebody sits down in a theater and gives you 2 hours, let's say, if we're talking about a feature of their life, to me that is a sacred transaction, right?
yeah,
And you have to
yeah,
do everything that is in your power to make those 2 hours really, really worthwhile. So, going back to the animation festival, if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however long your story is, it's your responsibility to treat that time as sacred, because there are a million opportunity costs, right? Out there. So, like you were just talking
yeah.
about
I mean,
Corey,
it's
and
yeah,
I think
uh,
it's really important, kind of keeping that in mind and knowing. And also, it's a good motivator. Like, it keeps you sharp, it keeps you moving, and when you're tired, it keeps I'm doing this because of reasons, right? And I want
yeah.
people to have a good
Everybody does
time
it for
and
their
to
reason, right?
connect with them,
I
right?
mean, yeah, sometimes art is not, you create art, artists create art not necessarily for the audience, for themselves, and some will
Right.
appreciate, some
Yeah.
not. I think, the entertainment business, in the business of the entertainment side of things is, in the end of the day, it comes down to some level of success, number of views, number of watch time, all these kind of data points. And some of the frustrations I have looking at the shift from kind of traditional media to, I guess, let's say YouTube, is YouTube content behaves. You kind of need to maybe produce it a little bit differently because you do lose audience very quickly, and it's just a
Hmm.
discovery platform, and it's constantly feeding you the next thing.
Yeah.
And so, a show that you might have made for with a 3 act structure for television, the old world of television, doesn't necessarily work on YouTube.
No.
And you put your heart and soul, a huge budget into something, and the numbers just ain't there. But it could
But
work for
that's just the
TV.
nature of the yeah. It's the nature of the medium, right? Like, you work in
Yeah,
it's a different. It's like the difference of painting with acrylic versus oil.
yeah, totally, totally.
It's just a different medium we're working on. Speaking of that, I think that you mentioned the word entrepreneurial, talking about, yourself and some of the people that you work with. And just by the way, just as a note, I think that the work of the work that is goes into figuring out how to set up a brand, set up a franchise, and all that is not only also fascinating for me personally, but it is creative work. Although it's,
Yeah.
quote unquote, you have to go like, oh, I'm taking care of the business side of things, but there's a lot of creativity that goes into this. So going back to the entrepreneurial aspect of things, and where we are today, I suppose, but and the conversation we were just having in terms of kind of left brain versus right brain. How important do you think having this kind of entrepreneurial uh, quality, even for a creative person
Yeah.
nowadays, or maybe training it as a muscle, going, oh man, I really need to start thinking about it in a certain way, so I'm gonna kind of train myself to do that, if for just general outlook, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So how do
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, well, first of all, I speak to a lot of creative people and go to various lots of different conferences, and my advice these days is, if you are, we get a lot of properties pitched to us, and I appreciate that, and we want to welcome that, but it is hard to launch new IPs. It's almost impossible, but it is possible. My
yeah,
advice to a creative person who has chops, whether they be a designer, an animator, or whatever it might be, in terms of the whole process of creating, is every day you're waiting for an answer from somebody like us, you're wasting your day. Make something, get it up there. And that's entrepreneurial, is putting yourself out there. Not everybody wants to do it. If you don't have the capability to
yeah,
do it all yourself, find two or three other friends in the industry
yeah,
that and make something and start putting it up there. Roblox has been really interesting to enter that space. You've got generally a creator who might be a 15-year-old, 22-year-old. There's professional studios too. People have been playing on that platform for a long time. They make games and they just launch them. That's what the platform is. Just very similar to YouTube. It's a creator platform, and they're putting stuff up there, and they're learning each time they put something up there. And these kids are doing it. If they can do it, and a director who worked on an amazing animated series could do it too. Not specifically Roblox. They could learn it. So I've said to many
yeah,
people that we've had working with us, just go on Roblox, learn the tools, because you can actually make animation with Roblox stuff. You can make story. And every day there's 1.2 billion views of YouTube content on YouTube and TikTok. Sorry, of Roblox content that's on YouTube and TikTok. A
yeah,
trillion views have
yeah,
happened of Roblox content. That's one thing. So entrepreneurialism is, just doing stuff. Maybe you don't have a perfect business plan, but there's the more eyeballs you have, you can start to generate a business around that. So find people you can partner with. It doesn't have to be one company you partner with for everything. Maybe it's just, okay, you have a couple of someone who's really good writer. There's great writers that are not working out there. They should partner with a great animator and the designers. You need two or three people. You can probably do a 5-minute episode over time and get it up on YouTube. I mean, it's there for everybody. I mean, that's the
yeah.
cool thing about where we're at right now, but it's hard. But if
Hmm.
the kind of paying, a $10 million show, those are going to be fewer and fewer of those. So we got to be able to
Yeah,
produce for less than that and at a greater speed, because it takes too long also. And that's just the way animation has been. And this is where AI can help there. But if it loses the creative heart and emotion, that's not going to work. So there's somewhere
yeah,
in between purely AI driven made stuff, purely handcrafted by a team of 100. Somewhere in there is where it needs to
yeah.
be. What Corey's doing is amazing. I mean, he's telling stories that he wants to tell. He's doing a lot of himself. It's hard. I'm sure it's hard.
Hmm.
I know it's hard. So scaling that, how do you do that? But finding ways to partner with great creative people, and or a business person too, who can help you. But I think if you build some success, that business person is going to be, okay, let's work with this person, right? They're showing that they can do it and that they have some success. And I'd love to work with every single person that's ever pitched us something, and it's impossible. I can't, and our team
Yeah.
can't. We have to manage the time, resources, and all of that. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to sustain what we
So
have. We have a big overhead, and it's like I need to sustain it because it's so good when it works together. It's awesome. So I need to make
yeah,
sure we make enough to cover that, because of the value of it. Even if the distribution revenues are down and licensing, if you're not the top 5 properties, it's very tough to make enough money to cover that kind of thing. And distribution, well, if you're a TV channel in a country, you have less eyeballs than you used to, so you're not making as much.
sure,
All the
of
money's
course.
going
Yeah,
to these tech companies, so got to learn
yeah,
those platforms as well.
yeah. Do you think? I mean, I don't know if this is like a little bit, not counterintuitive, but do you think there's too much stuff being made? If we're talking about, different, I don't know, different levels of quality is not the right word, but I think you know where I'm getting at. Do you feel there's a oversaturation?
Nah,
It's
I don't
hard
think so.
to
I
to
think there's
break
8
break
billion
through,
people.
or
8 billion people on the
yeah,
planet. There's always going to be the whole everything. Every IP is a niche. It's how big is the niche. If you can
right.
have a play that you do and you have 100 people that come to it, and you charge enough money, and you can cover your
You make it
cost,
work. Yeah,
you
yeah,
make it
yeah.
work. And I think I've been working on Slugterra for 15 years probably, and we're still working on it on behalf of WildBrain, who owns it. We do licensing. We launched a Roblox game. We know there's a sizable audience there. It's not huge. It's not the size of Star Wars or Marvel or any of these, but I read all the comments from fans. That really gets me excited.
Yeah.
There's so many comments. You go down these. There was a piece of fan art that was posted on Twitter or X. Somebody sent it over to me because I'm not on that platform, and the
Mhm.
artist has typically 100,000 views. Would be a big one. This one had 3 million. It was Slugterra, an anime version, and I went down the rabbit hole of all the comments, and it was just awesome. It's
Yeah,
all these people who grew up with it. They're 20 years old now, or 25. They love it. It changed their lives. Like all these
yeah,
that's mostly
yeah,
that kind. But they love other stuff? Yes, also. But they're definitely
yeah.
fans, and we can see it. And so I think it's serving that niche. Mickey Mouse is a niche. They're all a niche, and it's just how big it is and how much resources you
I
put to it.
love it.
So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. For sure. Like I agree. I don't think it's oversaturated,
yeah,
and I think there's always space for good things. And I love the idea of you have the tools of betting on yourself. Yes, it's hard. It takes time. It's not overnight. It takes discipline and grit. But I think that at the end of the day, that same discipline that gets you through it then trains you to also hold on to it once you make it.
yeah.
God willing. So if you
So
spend a year or two or three building something, and kind of working on it nights and weekends, and I don't know, 4 a.m. mornings or 5 a.m. or whatever, and you build it, and then gets a little bit of traction. Once the ball really gets rolling and kind of a
yeah.
little bit out of your control, I think that training really helps having like a level head,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
having
and we have a very
the
transactional industry if you look at it that way. You make a show, you deliver it,
yeah,
then you move to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I think that
yes,
world is just the volume of production, like bigger productions, which fueled and employed so many people in our industries very quickly. Wow, in 3 years, just poof. And
yeah,
it is a different world. We have to accept that. And someone told me, as Steve had introduced me to his former head of innovation at his previous company, my first question to him is like, wow, okay, first of all, that's a hefty title. That has to, you're setting a bar very high. Are you the most innovative person, and how do you define it? And I loved his answer. He's a very quiet spoken person, and he said, well, for me, innovation is really just about looking at a problem, a challenge, taking the blinders off and looking at it 20 different ways with other people in your organization, let's say, to try and say,
yeah,
okay, let's say we don't do it the way we did it. How would you start right now and do it? And I thought that was a super thoughtful answer and quietly said. And I was like, okay, that's doesn't mean you have to be the one who has the greatest idea. It's just a process. And
yeah,
and so I think for us, I've taken my blinders off a few times over the last 3 4 years. It's why Steve and I we were at dinner in MIPCOM, first one back post pandemic. We needed to figure out Roblox. we wanted to bring Slugterra there. We wanted to bring our IP there, and he had done a lot of virtual worlds back in the day. So we said, you know what, let's do it. We should do it. We should create
Yeah.
a division that we can do it, and we can do it for others as well. Same with the toy business. So it's kind of like, knock on the door of all the big toy companies, and the realization came with the CEO of one of the toy companies who said, I wish we could do $50 million or less toy lines. I was like, oh, why didn't you tell me that 15 years ago? I would have started a toy company then. So we said, let's do it. Let's what let's build. We were already in around the business, but so we launched last year, and this year should be decent. Next year should be even better, and that might be what we are. But again, it's always the audience. That same 8-year-old or 6-year-old is on all those platforms. They jump around instantly. YouTube, Roblox, social. They're not afraid of new things, and their friends talk about it, and suddenly, in Roblox, Grow a Garden comes out of nowhere and does 22 million concurrent users like 2 months ago, and has had 40 billion plays, and as a Roblox game with a small team of 3 or 4 people that made that. That's cool that's possible. And it broke through the consciousness beyond the Roblox platform. So it's all the same human beings. There's 8 billion people. There's not 150 trillion people. There's hours of time is probably the biggest thing. As you said, that sacred thing. Whatever they're going to do, it better be good. Doesn't have to be super high end. If it's super high end and boring, they're gone. You spent $20 million making something and it's boring. So I'll go to the thing that is fun, silly, exciting, adventurous, all of
relatable, clear.
Clear.
It's
or pure art, which I think is okay too. I mean, it's just the expectations are different. You're not trying to drive $100 million franchise, $1 billion franchise with pure art. That serves a different purpose,
I didn't mean to I didn't mean to sound like I am against art, making art for the sake of art. Definitely not. And I've experimented with so many different things, from painting to furniture making. But what I was trying to the point I was trying to make is that everything should kind of have its place, as it were, right? So everything has its place, and every manifestation of everything has its place, and it should be in the right place, because also that's where the audience is, and also on a more kind of whatever level, it's where it's going to serve best. And it's going to do its job. And kind of going back a little bit, quickly, to thinking about it from a brand perspective and a franchise perspective and so on. You were talking about this way of thinking from 20-25 years ago, and it's really, and it's great, and it's the way you should be looking at things, and trying to think, how can this have long legs and so on. But what is a little bit amusing to me is that this idea has been kind of presented at the forefront of all the market conversations in the past, I don't know, handful of years, as an innovative idea, right? Like, people are going, oh, thinking about themselves, and a lot of the big broadcasters as well, when they'll say, well, we'll give you 25% down for the budget for this season 1, for example, but we want all the rights because we see ourselves as brand builders now, right? And they would talk about these things as if it's a new idea now, because we have YouTube, now we're brand builders, right? But that philosophy isn't new. That approach isn't really new. It's just the platforms change, the tools change. Like you just said, the audience migrates, or is everywhere in different measures and so on. So
it's not new. It's absolutely not. I mean, George Lucas saw, and he said, well, okay, well, I'll do it for that, but I want to keep the merchandising rights for Star Wars, or I'm sure going back into the 50s and back to the pre-history times, there was versions of this. For sure, it's like control of at least an ability to that to me is frustrating in terms of my history, like about doing an original for Netflix. Okay, fine. It's not my goal to do one where we and if anyone from Netflix watches this, it is my goal. I would love to do a Netflix original. But that my drive really is I want to be part of the process of trying to activate these brands. And
Yeah.
when somebody buys it and you just hand it over to them and you wait, and for the most part you're not going to see the benefits of it. So it's just there's too few examples of that as a from for a creator to see it. And so yeah, so for me it's really like, okay, how can we retain that? How do you finance something to be able to retain the right to control the destiny? Because a platform, Netflix, they're getting better at merchandising and those things, but if they make $1 billion, let's say, on a property, which they wouldn't, because if it did 1 billion, they'd only maybe make 100, $200 million on it. It's a tiny little drip in the bucket of subscription revenue or ad revenue.
Yeah.
So it's not really the core driver. And ultimately, they move on. I mean, Demon Hunter, K-pop Demon Hunter is amazing. No
Yeah.
expectation.
Yeah.
I love those
Yeah.
stories. It's fantastic. They still chase it. They'll probably do pretty okay with it. And those are fascinating stories to track. But they weren't expecting it. And again, it's not as like for us. If we have outsized success on a merchandising standpoint, it would have great meaning to us and to the creator. So again, it doesn't have to be huge. Like you can do $100 million and be and
Yeah.
lose money. You can make $1 million and make money. So what
Yes.
sticks
Yeah.
to you at the end of the day? It's like maybe it's okay to not.
It's relative. Yeah.
Yeah, it's relative. But the
Yeah.
tools that are there, Roblox, 150 million people a day on that platform, mobile games. So,
Yeah.
so we could go direct to consumer, and I think that's a big part of what our shift has
Yeah.
been the last few years of being more B to C, uh,
Yes.
business to
Yeah. Yeah.
consumer, so that we can get immediate feedback and understand it, try to understand the data and evolve over time. But it's a nuance because you go to data, you lose the heart. So it's
Yes.
again, it's that
It's always a
symbiosis.
balancing game. Yeah. It's we're making commercial art, and we
Yeah,
always have to think about all these aspects. But I think again, going back to the kind of creativity aspect of it, even from a business standpoint or creative standpoint or the meeting of the two, I think that's also part of the fun. Thinking about the audience, thinking about where to find them, how to find them, how will they perceive this, how do I shift this, how do I change this? Again, going back, okay, we need to change this. How does this look now? So that's all part of the fun of it. And I think if you love
yeah.
the work, good stuff comes out.
Yeah, I agree.
And
The chat GPT that I did on predicting the next 10 years, I thought there was something really interesting in the answers. Let me see if I could find it. I won't find it
yeah,
while we're on here, but basically it's telling me what will IP, I guess, look like in 10 years or
yeah,
now. And it had a line that's something like, it's really more about fans and the IP that they get to create inside of. Back to that agency I was talking about before. It's like, and Disney's recent announcement of their open AI deal,
yeah,
allowing
yeah,
fans
yeah,
to use it, and I think it's quite interesting because it is that it's saying, okay, you know, first of all, let's make sure they're not stealing our copyright. Let's put some controls in there. Don't use our IP to do terrible things. Blah blah blah. So there's I don't know how they do that, but and they'll curate some of that maybe to bring over. So it's giving the fans an ability to tell their own stories with their great characters. So a lot of
yeah,
pushback and blowback, and I get all of it's controversial, et cetera. But I think it's kind of that, and that's what I think is interesting about Roblox and fan art, and the fans want to be part of it. So that's a really cool, interesting aspect of what these creator platforms have done is allowed creators to create and engage with the fans. And but how much control can you put? You put too much control and you lose the heart and the fans. And so it's
yeah,
yeah, we can't ultimately control everything. It's impossible. So sometimes you just let go a little bit, but within reason. So there's no right
yeah.
answer to these things.
I think, and ultimately, even with the UGC stuff, it really comes down to the story, right? And looking forward for like, let's say, quote unquote professional people, writers, directors, creators. Let's say the tools will become so intuitive, so easy, so cheap. At the end of the day, if you have nothing to say,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how easy it is to make things or how cheap.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I have just a couple of final questions. Is there anything, maybe also for you personally, not necessarily for you as head of Epic or um, with your kind of business hat on, maybe for you personally, is there any kind of show or categories of stories, for example, that maybe you don't feel you see enough of? Or is there a type of show, or maybe a story in general, could be whatever, show, feature, I
Sure.
don't care,
Yeah.
that you would really love to make one day?
Mm.
Or something that you think is missing from the landscape? Like, I think we should have more stories like this, or about
Yeah.
this, or with characters that are more like this. Is there anything that comes to
I don't know
mind?
if it's a white spots or white space, but I do think that romantic comedies over the last few years have just become rote,
Yeah,
formulaic nonsense, and I don't watch any. I love romantic comedies, always have,
yeah,
and they're if you go back 10, 15, 20 plus years, when I first started at Alliance Atlantis, I had been interviewed by one of the trades, like the whatever MIPCOM Daily, and I said that.
yeah,
They said, "You tell us something about yourself," blah blah blah. I said, "I love romantic comedies," and that was the headline of the thing. It was in the I just started, and
yeah,
that was they put a number on me, I would say, but it was quite funny. But yeah, I just
yeah.
think, whatever it is, there's always a way to even like it just this so close to there is a formula for sure in romantic comedies that AI can
Oh yeah,
easily say that this stage that you need to do this. Oh, they're not going to get together. But the good ones, they go just that one step further, like Jerry Maguire,
yeah.
so good. I love that movie. And
Oh,
there's so many
or
things
Harry
in
Met
it that are
Sally.
rewatchable. Yeah, Harry Met Sally, so many good ones that The Sure
Yeah,
Thing, that was one of my first ones that I loved back in, I don't know if it was '80s or John Cusack, which you can't buy it on iTunes. I don't know. There must be some rights issue. I
yeah.
found it on YouTube in
Oh
Russia,
man,
which is not
high
a
fidelity. Now
so
that you
many of
said
them.
this, like, so many good
So
ones.
many good ones. And I don't know,
Yeah,
there's so many Christmassy ones. You can just see all the postage stamp things on Netflix. Like, okay, that just looks purely rote. But I'm sure some of them are
yeah,
okay. But I don't know. Whatever it is, it's like, can it have just a little twist of something that, oh, okay, they elevated it.
yeah,
I saw,
yeah,
and on an
yeah.
action movie, revenge movie, I saw Sisu, and Sisu 2
Hmm.
is out. I haven't seen it yet. If you haven't seen it, it's quite yeah, violent, but it's a really cool
Yeah, graphic.
revenge
Yeah, yeah,
story.
yeah.
The
But yes, yeah,
Finnish character, and it's awesome. So
yeah,
yeah, just those ones that are a surprise, which really takes great filmmakers. And back to
yeah.
the back and forthing on the platform about the AI. I can't remember the gentleman's name who had a long rant. He said
Fraser.
he's teaching.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
take your
yeah,
time. Don't rush. Just so yes, we have to produce quicker, da, 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 but
yeah,
it still has to be great. Like Bluey is not. Don't you can't rush Bluey to like it's better be great. Like
yeah.
if you make a bunch of shit
Yes.
episodes, it's gonna
Yeah.
ruin it.
And
It's a
I
balance.
think it's that, like, by the way, about romantic comedies, I was just watching some sort of analysis of somebody who is way more educated and smarter than I am, both in politics and movie history. But it was said that when romantic comedies kind of disappear, it's a direct reflection of what's going on politically and socially.
Mm.
So, and usually it has to do with like a lack of general optimism in society. Like, I'm not gonna go. I have. Oof,
So we
it's
need more
dark now.
romantic comedies. I doubled down on
Yeah,
my
it's like
answer. We need that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's bad times. No, I can't. I'm not gonna go watch that. Because it's so
Yeah.
anyway.
No,
But
no,
I
obviously
think
great
what
comedies
is
too. I mean, there's not as many comedies out there. I mean, it's both
no.
of them, and it's
I mean,
I need both.
somehow, and I'm really happy that he's still around. But Josh Gad convinced Mel Brooks to do another Spaceballs. So hopefully
What?
they,
Nice.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I hope it's
Over,
not terrible.
over, over a phone call, and it's like one of those things where you kind of go, "Ooh, great," and then you go, "Oh man,"
Ooh, yeah, this could be terrible.
because they did do History of the World Part 2, and
Right.
despite all the good
Right.
intentions, they should have left it alone.
Yeah, and then
But
one
I
just
think,
one comment before I forget, Gladiator 2. I loved Gladiator, amazing.
yeah,
Gladiator 2 was absolutely terrible. Paul Mescal's in it, and what a miscast, like, or a misuse of his talents, and
yeah, yeah.
having seen Hamnet, oh my god, the guy is amazing as an
Yeah,
actor,
yeah,
and,
I did not
yeah,
manage to catch that one. But what I
Trumbo.
wanted to say also about the action movies like Sisu, for example, or the rom-coms, or any narrative format for that matter, even if it's formulaic, even if there's a restriction like that, right? Like a
Mhm.
limitation, it's this, right? Playing within that and
Yes.
in that kind of
Yeah,
repetition, there's almost like a martial arts like philosophy in it. Like you do it over and over and over again. You write and rewrite and rewrite, and then you go, there's a little twist. There's a little
there's a
different,
twist.
right?
Yeah,
There's a thing, and like when you do, when you repeat all the same moves and you're doing the katas or whatever, every time you do it, there your level of understanding of where that move comes from and da 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 and all that goes up and up and up and up. And it's the same here. Sometimes really simple,
yeah,
formulaic, silly things can be elevated really,
yeah.
really at
Totally, and
high
sometimes it's
levels.
just one character that's created that is like just makes a movie. Like that it's like, okay,
Totally.
that
Yeah.
character that's not necessarily the lead that or even it's just so sometimes it does come through that, whatever way it comes from. I think that's where filmmakers, well, I think it's always have to be at the lead of whatever, even if using AI tools, it's all those choices and decisions and the creative team
Yeah.
challenging each other and having a good and the right kind of environment where everybody's comfortable to do that and not just say, okay, yeah, this is fine. This is a good enough episode, right? And just go ahead. And that happens a
Yeah.
lot, of course. And then we have to realize every episode is like, okay, this is actually hundreds of thousands of dollars. It better be good,
Yeah.
that episode.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you
It's
hope
it's
each
a
stage
privilege, right?
elevates as opposed to, okay, it's in its formula, it's in its lane. Okay, go execute.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I
And
love
as we were
about it
talking,
all. Still do. Still love it all. It's like it's just the nuance of it all, and you make your attempt and to make a great show, but that's just not even the beginning. You deliver the show. You're not even you're still at the starting line, even though it already took
yes.
5 years to get there. Then
Yeah.
it's like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
roll out, and
Then
then
the yeah.
don't
Yeah.
give up
Yeah.
on it. Then you have to put
Yeah.
the
I know.
pedal to the metal.
Learned
Then
that lesson. Learned that lesson the hard way myself.
yeah,
We
well,
were talking with Alan about this as well, in that it's a team sport, and you should embrace it as such. Because
yeah,
we were talking about from a writing perspective, where it all kind of starts, and you could have a script or a writer who are very rigid, and okay, this is the thing, and like very, very, unless they're also the director, that's a
mm,
problem, right?
yeah,
So you
yeah,
wanna, and we were talking about this aspect of it, like you want to have a very clear vision, but also let other people make your stuff better. And I think this is across the board, not just in making the thing, but also then all the other aspects of the business, the distribution, the everything. Like let people add onto the brand and the franchise. Um,
yeah.
so
Cool.
I ask this final question of
Okay.
everybody that we talk to is the community building here is called the Toon Room as a metaphor. And if you would be asked to put a little note on the door of the Toon Room for people coming in, whether community or coming into the, again as a metaphor, into the industry, into the business, what would you say? Would there be any particular piece of advice? Maybe it's something that we already mentioned, you already said
Yeah.
earlier, that you want to kind of double down on.
Yeah, look, I think every community, has different angles to it. I just say to myself and to my kids and to everybody, be yourself and do your instincts are things that you've developed over your whole life and align with the people that, that don't necessarily agree with you, but that you can have a nice open conversation. What I like about what you're trying to do with
Right.
this is that it's a place for people, and it's not about us pitching what are we let me pitch you on something. It's kind of like being
Yeah.
actually honest about it. And sometimes I don't want I want to protect myself too and not be too honest with myself because it's like, should we really be in this business? I don't know. Should I? Would I start this today? I do ask myself that question. Would I
Yeah,
start over now?
yeah,
We're 9 years old now as a company, or we'll be in April 1st. I love that we started the company officially April 1st,
awesome.
April 4th.
Yes,
Um, but it's like, okay, would I go? I love the whole journey's been amazing. I will do this until I die, and that's kind of that was the other thing I set up. I built a org structure for the company. Say, okay, this is what I should do 99% of the time. Back to that book, it's like the happiness equation.
yeah,
Again, I do recommend. It's like, here's the things that, like, look back as the things where I was happiest. Here are the things that I really drain my energy. That's my job description, and hopefully that's a job. And so I think find your ultimate things that make you the happiest and try and find a way to either do it yourself or partner with people to allow you to do that part, and accept that
yeah,
you is very difficult. I know a lot of creative people. Some of them have both the business mind and the creative mind, but it's hard for them to wear them both simultaneously all day. It's
yeah,
really difficult and
yeah.
almost impossible. Even that for themselves, that seems like the two sides of their brains
It
always
is,
going.
yes. Yeah, they're fighting. I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
sure. So if you
yeah,
can live on the side that is most natural to you, then find a way to deal with the other stuff, either with other people to partner with, or rely on other people. Because that's the beauty of this part of the industry. Why I didn't go into the feature film world or reality programming or whatever, is that this community is spectacular, and we know that, and we
yes,
want to protect it. And that's
yeah.
kind of a part of my goal, is
I
to help protect that.
Yeah, I vowed that even if I decide to do like a 180, completely pivot, and I don't know, start go sell aluminum
A
siding
Walmart
or
greeter,
something.
or yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, whatever. Tires, that I'll do my best to at least come to NSC every year just to hang out because the
yeah.
people are so amazing.
It
And it
is a
will be
great event.
such a
Yeah.
relief. It'll be such a relief. Like, I'm not pitching anything, I'm not selling anything, I'm not buying anything. I'm
But if
just
you
here to
need a
hang
nice
out.
set of tires, winter tires, I got
Yeah,
them for you.
unless you need a nice set of summer tires in June. Yeah. So the
Well, thanks
people
for having me.
are
This was
it's
cool.
second to none.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much,
having me. This
sir.
was cool.
You're
Pleasure.
very generous with your time. We're a little bit over time. I apologize. Thank you to everybody who showed up. Um, and is there anything anybody would like to add, real quick, or should we just log off and let
Norm
Ken go?
Stengel, first of all, let me call out Norm. Nice to have you. It's been a long time. Good to see you here. Thanks for joining. That's cool. Marcelo, I don't know if I know you, but Corey, great. Thank you for joining. My I'm one I by the way, I haven't met Corey in
Oh, there you
person
go.
yet, but I want this signed when we do see you. And I Kim has shown me some of the stuff she's working on for Silly Crocodile, and I think you're going to be pretty excited about it. I'm very. Hey Norm, good to see you. That's been a long time. Nice to see you. Hey Marcelo, have we met Marcelo?
I'm
All
not
right,
sure.
very good.
I work a lot with Alex, and
Yeah,
I'm out engineer. I am a part of the other side, so it's really nice to hear about some other stuffs, and knowing about the marketing. Yeah, we have audio post production that only do animation series
awesome.
and films, and
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
really,
awesome.
really good stuff. We have
That's another thing I love about our industry. It's so global, and there's so much talent around. And what I love
yeah,
is that it's actually not just a purely US centric industry. It's a global industry. That's pretty awesome. Steve, hi Steve, you've joined. Thank you for joining. My partner Steve. I don't know if you've been there the whole
yeah.
time, but it's been a joy to work with you for the last many years. And Kirk, thanks for joining. Okay, well, we've gone a bit long, I'm sure, way too
Yeah.
long. So you can edit it down if you would like.
I will not touch this. I cannot be bothered. This
Yes,
was
I know.
great.
It's too much work.
Thank
Don't worry. Nothing to
Yeah,
cut. Just
thank
run
you.
it at two times speed. Two times
Yeah,
speed.
exactly. That it'll come with that disclaimer. Thanks again, everybody, who show up, and Ken, thanks so much for doing this. I really
A
appreciate you.
pleasure. Have a good weekend, everybody. Take care. Cheers.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.